Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast, focused on providing valuable information for anyone looking to undertake a new build or extension project. We'll share our tips, tricks and stories from a building designer's perspective.
Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast. Welcome again, Frank, our building design expert.
Expert?
Oh, well, today you can be an expert.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Amelia, how are you?
Good, thanks. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I want to talk about timber floors and, in particular, failures that I've seen over my life as a building designer. I think it's a poignant topic when people have older homes or even newer homes, as I'll share a story later on, that when construction's being done on a timber floor, it has to meet a minimum standard under the building codes and ventilation. And it's a bit of a hot topic with us in Tasmania due to condensation, moisture contents underneath floors. So I thought it'd be a good time to be able to talk about timber floors and why we spend so much time getting it right.
Well, it could be catastrophic when they fail.
Oh, yeah, it's not pretty. When your timber floor fails, and you won't know until it actually goes snap, and I know of a couple of cases where people have actually put their foot through or fallen through floors, or the whole floor sagged and something weird going on. Some of it was very, very scary.
And it sounds pretty costly to try and repair as well.
Well, you think about it, everything sits on the floor, isn't it?
It's exactly
Including the
right.
walls.
Yeah.
You know, so she's a pretty major piece of the house, so you want to get it right and make sure it lasts the life of the building. And it's amazing what some people made decisions about what they do on the outside of their building that causes the floor to rot. And it's on the outside of the building. We'll talk about that a bit later.
That sounds like a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So maybe I should share a story with you then, saying. So I got this real perler. No, it's not a perler. I shouldn't say that. It was very sad. It was a case where I got brought in to insurance claim, and a building surveyor asked me to come in and says, could we have a look at this? I'm part of this problem with this house. So we went through it, and it's been recommended for demolition, and the house was barely 7 years old.
Wow, you expect a floor to last longer than 7 years.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the floor, so it was a bit bigger than that. So it was a brick veneer house, all rendered, timber floor, colour bond roof, pretty standard stuff. I had a bit of slope on the site, and that's why it was a timber floor. So what had happened, they pulled up the carpet and there was all this white and black mould. Oh. Yeah, you should have seen it. It was horrific. Yuck. So I went up there, had a look, and they actually plasticked off the room because of the potential of the mould spores going through the rest of the house. Put up the carpet, it was horrible. Go, wow, that's not great. And they showed a hole in the floor where someone actually stepped through because the chipboard got so wet and soggy, someone put their foot through, so sitting on the carpet went straight through. So the carpet stopped their leg going straight through the floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, then they did more investigation and found that quite a large area of the house, the floor had rotted. So from the chipboard, what we call structure floor, to the pine joists, pine bearers, had rotted.
So essentially they're all the bits that are holding up the house, is that right?
That too, yeah.
Wow.
Now, then it was discovered there was a ton of other not well thought out construction techniques. So there was lintels above sliding doors, there was nominated steel, they put in some timber that was left over from the boxing of some formwork of concrete. They bought half the roof in trusses and half of it was pitched. It went on and on and on. It was a very bad build. But also unbeknownst that once we went under the floor, I must say I love crawling under floors. Not.
I don't think anyone
I'm
does.
6'2", and trying to crawl under these floors, it's not pleasant.
Let alone the cobwebs and
all that and any other nasties. Fine, but it was only 7 years old, so it wasn't too bad. But what we found, you could easily see a water tracking through underneath the house. A lot of water. It actually formed erosion under the floor. So we figured out where the moisture was coming from, but we looked under the floor and it was horrific. So I understand where the assessment came back. They didn't think they could repair it, recommend the whole building for demolition. It was going to court and all this. So I got asked to look at it. They had a specific builder in there as well, an old school builder, and we worked through the problems. So we recommended to do demolition of the internals to assess it better. So we stripped, so that family moved out, we stripped the building completely inside to figure out what we can keep and what could salvage and what not salvage. So essentially what we found was we confirmed water was tracking through underneath the floor from the outside from lots further up the hill. It was never addressed. So the main problem was water coming in under the floor, and we're talking a lot of water. So then they didn't put the correct amount of vents around the perimeter. So under the building code, you've got to put vents in at minimum spacings due to the size of the vents. That's all calculated. Every designer and architect knows how to do that. They should do. And then that compounded that the moisture, the air going through, could not dry out the underside of the floor. It then caused mould and mildew, and we ended up finding bearers and joists looked fine. They looked all in perfect condition until you touched them, and then we grabbed them and you could squeeze them and they were like a sponge. Eventually we got a piece tested. It was a brown mould of some kind. I didn't know the technical term, but it rotted from the inside of the bearers and joists. So the outside looked fine. The inside was completely hollowed out.
Oh, wow. That doesn't sound very safe.
No, it wasn't, because I could grab it and squeeze it with my hand like a sponge.
Wow.
It was really creepy and weird. So then determined the extent of the works. We determined that was the main problem, the lack of ventilation and also dealing with the drainage. We were able to deal with that with lots of pits, ag drains around the house, and then to be able to divert the water, because we had to dry the underside of the floor, but there was no floor at that stage. Had to dry it all out before we built the new floor. Mm-hmm. So then we put in all the vents that we needed to do to make compliant. We went a little bit overboard, to be fair, just to make sure. A lot of exterior works to divert water, and we were able to rebuild the floor. So the bottom line is we were able to salvage the house, rebuild the floor, rebuild all the bathrooms, bedrooms, lounge rooms, the front kitchen and dining and games room I think was still fine. And I won't talk about all the other works that we had to do, but we just rebuilt the whole thing from the inside out. That
must have been devastating for the family that lived there, though. I mean, that's how catastrophic these sort of problems can be.
But it was dodgy building practices. That builder racked off. He was over in Queensland and handed in his licence, and they tried to chase him for the money, and it was just I don't know what the end result was, and that wasn't part of my role. But it's being aware that a good quality builder, good designers, make sure that they design the floor correctly and it vents properly, and it doesn't have to be bone dry under there. A little bit of moisture is okay, but as long as it has the ventilation to dry out the underside of the floor and doesn't develop any mildew or mould underneath. Because now, this was in the days before insulation was required under floors, whereas now we do. So sometimes it's hard to see. You've got to pull the insulation out to actually see if there's any mould or mildew. So that was pretty horrific. And this affected the family in a lot of ways. Obviously, the mould and mildew, that's a health issue. And,
100%.
And, we were talking about doing a future podcast on healthy homes, products. So I'm looking forward to doing that in the future. It also affected they had to move out. They had to rent somewhere. They had to cough up a lot of money for legal fees and all the rest of it. Whether they recovered that, I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs. There was an insurance claim. I don't know how much they got back on that. Disrupted their family lives for close to, I think it was 14 months.
Wow.
So the effect is massive, all because someone didn't build correctly to the building code. And I know someone's going to ask us, why didn't the building surveyor pick this up?
That's a really good question.
There's another whole story there, and I won't go into it. But, it was very disappointing on the building surveyor side. It was really disappointing because it was obvious that this was wrong. Really obvious. You would have seen it at frame stage. But I'm going to leave that one alone. How it affects family relationships going through all this challenge, whether you're going to have a house or not. The financial burden on this family was huge. And imagine that, 14 months, whether you don't know if you're going to have a house or not.
Oh, the emotional strain would be horrendous.
Oh, it's unbelievable. They moved back into the house, it all got solved. So there was a bit of a happy ending, but obviously long-term effects on their relationship, their finances and all the rest of it, I don't know, but we were able to salvage rather than demo the whole house, which I was very pleased about. They were too, in a lot of ways. So imagine if you bought a house and you didn't know about the floor.
Well, how would you know? That's the next question is, where do you even start with that?
Yeah, very true. Good question. There are companies that provide pre-purchase inspections. Now, they can only inspect what they can see. Let's be very clear on this.
And I know, because I've had this done myself,
yes,
there's always all these disclaimers that are on their forms that you've got to sign.
But you've got to think about it. If there's no access door to the underside of the floor to go and have a look under a timber floor, how do you see it? You can't. There should be an access door, but it's not unusual not to have one.
Especially in older homes too.
Yeah, very true. So they can only see what they can see. They can't see by someone fixing up some plaster wall and dodgy framing behind it, or something's rotted out. You can't tell. And I know a particular case where that actually happened. We actually did have to demo the house. It was really bad. That's another story for another time. But it was a similar situation. It's get them to do pre-purchase inspections, but you may have to engage a quality builder who knows all different types of construction to be able to go in and have a look underneath. Again, he can only see what he can see. So it's, as we've spoken before about purchasing houses, buyer beware. That's the law. So spend the money on pre-purchase inspections, get experts in to have a look, buy all the existing drawings from the council if you can, all the permits, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of work involved to do this well. Still doesn't guarantee you're not going to find something dodgy. And I've seen it before on bathrooms. They're a classic for failure. All you need is a little bit of the waterproofing to fail, and then it leaks, goes everywhere, destroys everything.
That'd be a classic one. Happens
It's
all the time.
I'd love to see the actual percentage in the industry, but I know from an insurance claim in houses, I believe it's the highest claims in the insurance industries, wet area failures, as I understand it. So it begs the question, why isn't it done properly in the first place? Again, that's another discussion for another time. But we have Australian standards to do it. I believe some people do it very well. Some builders go way over the top. They don't want it. They're good builders that will do it really well all the time. The guys that just do it to the minimum, I have to question that. You just don't want this stuff coming back. But you as a homeowner, to replace a bathroom now, what, $20,000-$25,000? Subject to the amount of damage it does.
Yeah.
We saw one recently on a relative new house, someone that we knew, and it was on a concrete slab. The waterproofing failed. It actually destroyed the laundry joinery, the bedroom joinery, carpets, bottom plates, just ruined everything. And it went underneath the tiles, underneath the carpets, and it wasn't noticed for quite a while. And the house was barely 3 years old.
Oh, wow. And that was on a concrete slab?
On a concrete slab, because the water then tracked along the concrete.
Wow.
So that, I believe that was like 30-odd thousand, because it damaged everything around it. And when the tiler who did the work was approached, I won't go into that, but it didn't go well. Walked away.
It's really surprising, actually. I know when I renovated my bathroom, I had quotes from 2 different tilers. One of them didn't do waterproofing. He leaves it up to the client to do the waterproofing, which I was really surprised about, because what if that's stuffed up? How do you know you're even doing it properly? Exactly. And then the other tiler that I got a quote for, he was the complete opposite. He said, no, even if you want to save money, we don't allow anyone except for us to do the waterproofing, because it comes back onto them.
So he's taken full responsibility for the job.
That's right.
Brilliant,
So it was a very easy decision when it comes to that. Yeah. But, I mean, there'd be plenty of
there's no shortcuts with waterproofing.
Exactly.
You do it once, do it right, it should last the life of the bathroom or the house. So then this is no different to the underside of the floor. Doing the vents, getting the clearance between the timber to the ground. All sorts of things. Under the building code, we have to do as a minimum. Blows my mind how it still is a problem. But here's the thing. As certain homeowners don't understand how these things work, I have seen on a lot of occasions where people put garden beds up against their houses, or new footpaths, or decks and things like that. And they cover the vents. So if you've got vents around the outside of your house, onto your timber floor, they are there for a purpose to get the air in and out, so the air keeps changing underneath the floor. You cover those up, the underside of the floor can't breathe. It's as simple as that. So where people build raised garden beds, cover them up, build a deck and put a timber plate over the vents, don't do it. Got to keep the house ventilated. And the same with this thing called weep holes on brickwork. Don't cover them up. You're not allowed to. The building has to breathe. So that's my tip. Don't cover up your vents or your weep holes, subject to what type of construction you have. But I'm amazed how many times I see it, heaps of times. So, she's an interesting topic, this one, because I've got a ton of stories of failures.
Horrendous ones, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's horrendous for the owners, the homeowners. They don't know this stuff. But, I'd be interested to hear from our listeners. Go to our Facebook page and put some questions about this topic and see if we can answer them in a future podcast.
Or send us a message. Send us a private message. We're happy to bring it up on one of our future podcasts.
Yeah, because I've got some other stories. But talk to your professionals, a good builder, building surveyor, architect, building designer. They can give you all the right advice on this type of stuff.
So in saying that, are there any telltale signs? Like, I know you said it's hard without being able to see anything, but there would be, I'm sure, some telltale signs that you can see that maybe you've got possible failure in your timber flooring?
Well, it's really hard to tell sometimes because you're covered in carpet, covered in tiles, overlay flooring. You don't know sometimes. I've seen it once where it had overlay flooring. They pulled up and there was mould, like a lot of mould between the overlay flooring and the chipboard flooring they had down. It was insane.
And they had no idea?
No idea.
Wow.
You can't see it till it actually fails or someone gets sick or something like that. And by then it's too late. It's very hard. Look, I've crawled under floors of houses doing inspections and things. You must think I love going under floors, but I really don't. It's not my thing. But I checked one out for one of the guys here at work. You know, they're looking to buy a house and I crawled under and I looked underneath the kitchen and the underside of the floor was black and white of mould.
Oh, no.
It was terrible. And I'm going, this is disgusting. What's going on here? And I saw this weird goopy stuff. And I went upstairs into the kitchen, had a look, and I couldn't figure out where it's coming from. And then I looked closer near the dishwasher. And the toe base, it's the strip below all your cabinets. Mm-hmm. And I could see there was big ripples in the Laminex or whatever product they used, just around the
bottom,
the dishwasher.
Yeah.
And then I put my hand. There was a little gap between the dishwasher and the side of the cabinet. I put my finger in there. I could feel that, and it had a tile floor, and I could just feel a lip there. So the tiles stopped. They didn't go all the way in where the dishwasher was, and I figured it out. The dishwasher's leaking, and because it's leaning back and it's not seeing the tiles, the water was just hitting the chipboard flooring. And it might have been a slow leak, but that's actually gone through the chipboard and all this weird yellow, horrible looking stuff from underneath. But then that mould transferred right through the chipboard underneath the tiles and all the cabinetry.
Wow.
Because all the pipes were dry as. All the water lines were dry. Couldn't figure it out. I was just racking my brain, but it was just the dishwasher failed. And it could be just a slow leak. But now it's just destroyed the floor.
So sometimes it's not even, a construction problem. It's, just
It's
a
an appliance problem.
failed appliance.
Yeah. So be real careful with these things. You don't know it happens sometimes. It could be like you washing machines, rarely see it because you usually have the flooring going straight underneath the washing machine, but dishwashers don't. They just skimp on the extent of the tiling or the flooring where it should go all the way through. Mm-hmm. Then you would have seen it would have leaked out from underneath the dishwasher. I'm full of bad stories today, aren't I?
Full of stories.
Full of stories, yeah.
Full of other things.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, so I would look forward to anyone who might have some questions or their thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, and have you ever had a failed floor? I'd be really interested to know.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll see if we can answer some of your questions.
All right, we might wrap it up there. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time.
Catch you later.
You're listening to the Building Design Prime Time podcast.